we go. Here we go. Why does nothing I type into the side pop up? Maybe I'll blame that also on I just saw myself, and I had like a little yellow orange thing from the Dayquil I just chugged to try to get me through the rest of this day. Wow, wicked. Are you ready? There it is. Let's go. All right. Cool. Hey, Mike Canizio, how are you, buddy? I was thinking about you today. I got a phone call or something from somebody, and it came up. I thought it was Mike Canizio, but it was not. It was Mike, some other Mike C word. All right, everybody. Good to see you all. Getting over this wicked head cold, and amazed that so many people seem to have it as well. It's a doozy, and it's not COVID, so don't even try that. Don't even try that tact. A couple of things. Let me give you housekeeping things. Let me see. So we signed the contract with the hotel in Chicago for the hotels to apartment conversion conference. I had a great meeting with David Peters, who is going to be my co-host on that panel, on that session. It's going to be 2 days of teaching about all the different aspects of converting a hotel to an apartment. Folks, you got to be looking at this. You got to have this in your toolkit, because this is going to, as David Peters, who is nationally known, he was on CNBC as an expert on hotel to apartment conversions, and he's a member of the MultifamilyOS system. He was told us, he said 2023 is the year of hotel conversions. And we are, so in the next week to 2 weeks, we're going to open up the doors to that. It's very limited in the seating. It's going to be an amphitheater style room, which I prefer to teach in. And so therefore it's very limited. It's not like a function hall. Then we're also doing a Multifamily OS conference summit in Florida in June. And that one, there's going to be you buy one, get one type of, deal that'll be coming up for both of those. But also my current students, they also will get first access to get into all the programs. And we are also doing our annual mastermind for the Multifamily OS students just before that conference, the 2 days before, then 2 days in Florida, and then almost 2 months later, 2 days in Chicago. So it'll be great. Hey, John, good to see you. Andover in the house. Oh my gosh, Doug Benson, I miss you, buddy. Oh, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I had so many questions for you. I saw the other day that you and Debbie are doing well. It's great to have you back. Great to see you doing all right. So let me see what else. I think that's about it for the housekeeping. So I don't have any slides for today's talk on due diligence, because Molly was late getting into the office today, and she didn't yell at me to make slides. So it's all her fault. And but this is particularly a fun topic. And one thing interesting about due diligence is that in putting together the agenda for the hotel conversion, Dave Peters and I were talking about the process of due diligence in a hotel conversion. Folks, entirely different. I mean, we can do the legal due diligence, very similar, but all the other elements that take into consideration zoning and building codes, all of these things are things that are not taught on a multifamily side, because a multifamily is going from multifamily to multifamily. But a hotel conversion, I was going from hotel to multifamily. You've got to be concerned about things like the zoning laws or the building code laws for the size of the elevator. It's a hotel rules are different than an apartment rule. So those are the types of things that we're going to be covering in the conference in Chicago in the end of July 28th and 29th. I think it's and Molly can correct me on this one. Molly, you might want to type it in, or if Deb's listening. 28th, 29th. It's a Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday. I think it's Friday, Saturday. And it's in a conference facility where you can play golf in Chicago. So let's talk about the due diligence process. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be going right through the questions as we go, because I'm not going to be reading any slides. So the due diligence process begins at the letter of intent stage. Your letter of intent should clearly define everything that you want to have covered on the due diligence section. And that's how we do it, is we say attached is Schedule 1 or Schedule A. And we list out on the very first correspondence we ever send out all the things we want to see in the due diligence. We let them know right ahead of time, this is what we want. Okay. Now, that's the first part of getting the due diligence started. The second part is making sure they give it to you in a timely manner. And my letter of intent separates the execution date from the effective date. And the reason why we do that is because we tell the owner, the seller, in the very first piece of paper we give them, that we're not going to give you a dime into the earnest money, into the escrow agent, a deposit account, until you've given us everything we need. Let's not pussyfoot around here. You give us what we need, and then we'll move our money. And that came about because of two scenarios that happened through my years of being in this business. First off is sitting around and waiting for the owner to get you all the documentation you need to even engage a lender. And you've got a 30-day window to make it happen. And the guy drags his feet. Your clock is ticking. So the way we now structure the LOI is that the clock does not start ticking, Mr. Seller, until you give us everything. And the other thing that happened was moving the money from your bank account to the escrow agent's bank account. Now, here's the thing. When I was learning this business, and the gurus that were teaching me would say, the first 30 days, you got a free look. For no matter what reason, if you don't want to do the deal, you can kill it and you get your money back. Okay, that's for all intents and purposes true. And then if we have a financing contingency, then you got another 30 days to get your money back. But what they don't tell you, two things. First off is that second 30-day period, the financing period, you don't just get your money back if you don't like the deal. Your money is now conditionally hard. If you get the financing that meets all the requirements that you've described in the purchase and sale agreement, you can't use that excuse anymore that you want your money back because of the financing contingency. Your money's now hard. Now, we write that financing contingency so that it's wide enough to drive a Mack truck through. If it has to meet your approval. Well, what's your approval? Well, I don't know. If I don't like the requirements for any reason, I'm going to get out of it. So we do protect our students and clients that way by making that very broad. But it's always conditional. Now, the other thing I want you to understand is whenever you move your money from your bank account into anyone else's, you always run a risk of never getting it back. I don't care what the contract says. I've seen such shenanigans that you've got to understand that. So before you write a check, you want the seller to be on board and giving you everything you need. I mean, I've had some times where I've sat back on that 30-day and I watch it get down to 10 days and I'm pleading with the brokerage, send me, give me what you can. And it comes down to the final day, and you're just like, I quit. I can't do business with this guy if this is the way he's gonna perform. And remember, one of the biggest complaints you get is the seller says, once everything's signed, well, I don't have that, and I'm not gonna be able to provide that. Dude, I gave you this contract on day one. Did you ever look at it? Why didn't you tell me back then you can't provide the bank account information? You can't provide the utility information. I needed to know that stuff. So that's another thing that the sellers always try to do. They're lazy. A lot of them, I mean, especially if you're going for the smaller size properties, under 50, you're dealing with a mom and pop shop. You really are. And, whatever their property looks like, that's what their checkbook looks like. So just understand that. Use it to your advantage, but be in control. Number one rule. What's the number one rule? Stephen Thorne, TV. What's the number one rule? See if Stephen Thorne has been following me. He says he's a new student. Let's see if because Steve, how many? Yeah, exactly, Alan. But don't tell Stephen what the answer is. Stephen, what is the number one rule? Because I know everybody's on there is like just chomping at the bit. Come on, Stephen. Come on. And if anybody's private messaging Stephen, shame on you. Don't tell him. Don't tell him. See if he can figure it out for himself. Okay. So 3 phases to the due diligence. One of the biggest mistakes new investors make is they think, oh, I got the deal under contract. Let's go buy airline tickets. Oh, boy, I got to jump in the car and go see this thing. I don't know, if you jump in the car, you can go see it, but don't start planning any trips. You're not ready yet. You've got some steps to do back in your home office before you should even think about leaving. You got 2 more stages to go through that if the property fails those 2 stages, you might as well not even go to see the property. It's not worth it. Okay. Oh, Steve's not sure. Okay. Hey, Matt. Okay, Stephen, I'm going to let, you know what? I'm going to call on my old friend, Doug Benson. See if Doug Benson, one of the oldest students here in tenure, see if Doug Benson can say, what is the number one rule that I always teach, Doug? While he's waiting for that, we'll come back. Okay. Let's talk about the first one that everybody glosses over of the 3 stages of the due diligence. And one, obviously, as a lawyer, this is most important for me, is the legal due diligence. Okay. The legal due diligence. And people just gloss over this. And I can understand it. It's not gloss, it's not fancy. It's not, I may not come back to you if you transfer it. Yeah, no, that's not it. Okay. Doug Benson, where is he? I'm going to give Doug 10 more seconds. But the one that people gloss over is the legal due diligence. The legal due diligence is essentially the title insurance, okay? And we can also throw in things like possibly survey and environmental. So I'm going to talk about those 3 things in the legal process. So the first one is the title insurance. Okay, in the title insurance, in the letter of intent, we tell you who's paying for the title insurance, who's paying for the title commitment letter. That's what you want. Oh, Steve is trying his darndest. Okay, I'm going to throw it out there to, how about Mike Canusio? Mike, what's the answer? What's the number one rule? What is my number one rule? All right, so the first thing is a title commitment letter. So in the letter of intent, it says typically that the seller always stay in control. There's Ray Peters. Ray Peters jumped in front of you, Mike. Always remain in control of the deal, Steve. And so in these cases, when you're waiting for the seller to give you all the information, you don't move. You told them, I'm not going to do anything until you provide me something because I'm in control of the deal. Now, the title commitment letter, the way it's going to work, or typically, is as soon as you get the deal under contract, before you've even met the owner, he's already engaged a title company. All right. For most times. Other times, you get to control who the title insurance company is. I recommend you choose the title insurance company. This has caused fights for me with brokers, and I never understood why. Let me tell you a story. So I was doing a big deal in Texas, and the way it worked was I told the seller that I wanted to choose the title insurance company, and the broker said, we don't do it that way here in Texas. And I said, I don't care. I'm doing it this way because I want to choose the quality of the title insurance company that I end up buying because I'm the guy that's paying for the premium. So I get to choose. And the thing is, it's not like there's any difference. They're state promulgated rates, which means that they're all the same. The only difference between title insurance companies is the sales reps giveaways that they can give you. Tickets to the Dallas Mavericks game, I got those, but I didn't get any break on the rates. The rates are state set. So it doesn't matter who the company is from a premium standpoint. If the seller's paying the premium, he doesn't care who the company is. But in this particular case, the broker said, unacceptable. We won't even do the deal. You have to do the deal with this particular title insurance company. I said, no, I want to do it with Chicago Title. No, we won't allow it. No, that's the only way it's going to be. Why are you being so belligerent? That's not the way we do it here. And I explained to him, I said, listen, first deal I ever did up in Michigan, 3 years after I bought the policy, I had to file a title insurance claim. And the title insurance company, Lawyers America or Land America, I can't even remember, had filed for bankruptcy. They were gone. I had to deal with the state insurance department to get the claim paid. So where was the seller? He was the one that chose the company. Where was the seller? He was long gone. He was under a tree in Tahiti. And I was the one left holding the bag for that bad choice. So I choose who the title insurance company is going to be. And this guy fought me on it. And he finally said, okay, fine, we can do Chicago Title, but it has to be through this law firm. I said, no, I want to go directly through the home office because I deal with the underwriter directly there. And nope, you have to do it through this law firm. Come to find out, the seller's daughter-in-law was working at that law firm, and she was going to be the one holding my $250,000 escrow money and doing the deal. No, not going to happen. As soon as the broker found out the conflict, boy, he went with his tail between his legs, and that was the end of that. All right. So is this being recorded? Why, CJ? Am I saying something I'm not supposed to say? Have I mentioned any names yet? All of these calls are recorded. They're live. If you go back on my YouTube channel, and listen, guys, while you're here, make sure I can't remember who it was last week, smash the like button and subscribe to my channel because that really does make a difference in me moving up the chain. So make sure you do that. I would really appreciate it. So here's what happens in your house, sitting back in your home office, because in the purchase and sale agreement, there's a section on notice, and that's where you're going to put your information, where your home office is. And the title insurance company that you end up choosing sends you a title commitment letter. And the title commitment letter has 2 sections on the back. All the front of the policy is pretty much standard. Like, subscribe, and hit post notifications. Thanks, AJ. So you get this letter in the mail from the title insurance company called a title commitment letter. And it shows what the policy is going to look like. And it shows 2 sections in the back, B1 and B2 exceptions. The B1 exceptions are pretty standard exceptions on most policies, but the B2 exceptions are the ones that are unique to your property. And those are the ones you need to be aware of. Let me explain to you, for those of you that have never had to go through a title insurance policy situation before, this is how it works. If you were to buy life insurance and they issued you a policy, and in the back page of the policy, it had all the ways you're not allowed to die for them to pay the claim, you'd be screaming bloody murder, like, what? I can't, if I get killed in a foreign automobile, if I get killed, while flying a drone, like, if they started sticking in all these exceptions, you'd say that's a crappy policy. Well, that's what goes on with the title insurance company. They stick in all these exceptions that are unique to your policy. Some of them are valid. I'm not saying they're not valid, but your job is to get those exceptions removed before the policy gets issued. Now, it's not your job, it's your lawyer's job. Okay. So what you have to do is as soon as that letter comes in, you turn around, you send it to your local council where you're buying the property, because you are going to have local counsel. Because as I tell all of my students, the Massachusetts Bar Association requires me to inform you that I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. You will hire a lawyer. I will work with your lawyer to help them through the process, but I will not represent you in any title insurance action or in any other state. I'm not even going to represent you in Massachusetts, which is where I'm licensed. But you've got to engage your local counsel and get them that title commitment letter as soon as possible. Because in the purchase and sale contract, there are deadlines. You have certain time periods that you have to act. And if you don't act in a timely manner, you own those exceptions. You can no longer get out of the deal because you get a bad title insurance policy. You own it. So don't be the guy that just sits on his hands. As soon as that letter comes in, you're going to go get it right over to your attorney. Now they're going to go through it. Now you got to make sure you got a good lawyer, because I've dealt with some doozies. I've dealt with some lawyers who have written the most brilliant exception letters to a title insurance commitment letter. Absolutely amazing, masterpieces. I've dealt with some lawyers who said, "Oh, you're not allowed to do that. You can't waive any exceptions." When I heard the guy say that, I said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah, no, that's not how we work it. That's the policy." No, run for the hills if you get a lawyer like that. You want to get a guy who represents you, is your zealous advocate through the process, and takes care of your company. Because remember, guys, this is financial protection for your company. So you want to make sure the policy is a very good one. That's the title insurance policy. When you get the final commitment letter and it's all cleaned up, and this is going to be the final version, that's when you decide, is this good enough for my investors, for my company, and for me to remarket the property X number of years from now? Because you want to get clear and marketable title. And sometimes the only way you do that is through an insurance policy. So you want to make sure that this is a good policy that's going to protect you all throughout the ownership of your ownership. Okay, that's the legal due diligence. All of that takes place not on the property site, back on your home office, on your desk, between you and your lawyer. Okay, but that's crucial. There are 3 ways to getting out of this property: physical, legal, and financial. That was the legal way. That's once that time period is extinguished, which typically goes to the end of the inspection period. Once that period is over, you cannot raise any gripes after that point. Let's see. Oh, CJ, yeah, CJ, we're going to be around. You can all these things are recorded on YouTube Live. Like I have a whole section on my Multifamily Investing Academy YouTube channel where you can go back and watch these things all the time. I mean, that's the whole purpose of doing this thing, is it builds up content on my channel, and it's fun for me. I love doing it. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is the financial. Now, the thing about the financial is the clock does not start ticking for your inspection period until you've received all the documents from the seller in order for you to go back and put on that hat. Picture yourself sitting at your desk with a green visor and the green armbands, just like the old-fashioned bankers. And now you are the forensic accountant, and you're going to rebuild the financial model of this property and match it up to the trailing 12 that they gave you to sell the property, and match it up to your analysis to make sure that you are buying the property that you thought you were bringing out to your investors. So it all starts at the top line. The top line is how much money did this property bring in? Now that is if you're building your financial model on a cash basis, that's where you're going to start. But I want you to build your financial model on an accrual basis. So we're going to start with the gross market rent. Okay. And that's where you're going to be figuring out what the market is in that area, because we are going to rebuild these financials so they are squeaky clean. And the first thing we want to know is, do we have room in the rents to go up? Because remember, when you got this offering memorandum from the broker, oh, he told you there's so much room for improvement, so much room for value add. You can increase the rents by $400. It's at this stage of the due diligence that you are going to prove him right or prove him wrong. And you're going to do it by every number you put into your financial model is going to be done with third-party numbers. Nothing the broker gives you, nothing the seller gives you. You're going to go out there and figure it yourself. So you're going to go into CoStar, apartments.com, Rentometer. You're going to figure out. You're going to pick up the phone. You're going to do some secret shopping of the competitors. You're going to find out what these people are paying in that marketplace. That's your top line number. Then what you're going to do is you're going to figure out how much rent did this property collect in the last 12 months? And there's only one way to do that, and that is with the bank deposits. Don't believe anything else. So let me walk you through this scenario here, because I mean, I could go in way deep into this, but I'm just going to give you this top line. And this is the part that you always get fights on with the seller. When you start to get a fight with the seller, he can't turn over 12 months of bank statements, red flag. But you need to see the money going in, and you're going to get it from a third party, and the third party is going to be the bank, and it's all going to be done with bank statements. Don't believe anything the seller tells you. Don't believe anything the broker tells you. The bank is what you're going to use. So therefore, in every letter of intent transferred over into the purchase and sale agreement, every document has the request for 12 months of bank statements. If they cross it out, done deal. You can't get out of it. Why won't you turn over 12 months of bank statements? Just think for a second. What other business would you be buying where the seller would not allow you to see any of the financial data coming in, any of the bank deposits? That's just crazy. People in multifamily think, well, you're getting the real estate. You go out and you deal with it. No, I'm buying a business. I want to see exactly what the numbers are going in. So we get those bank statements. Now, the excuses that they're going to come up with are always the same. It's always, oh, I commingle all my funds in one big bank account. Oh, listen, I'm kind of embarrassed, but I use this account kind of like an ATM. So you're going to see a lot of personal charges coming out of it. Okay, first off, if you file the financial statement, if you file the tax return on this business, this LLC, no accountant is going to sign off on that return without verifying the deposits. I want to see what the accountant came up with or uses in order to sign off on your returns. Number two is the one other thing I said where he commingles the accounts, or he uses it like it's a little personal ATM. You know what? I don't care what you do with the money. All I want to see is the money going in. I want to see who paid you, and I want to match up the receipts that I'll get off your property management system, matching up with the deposits going in. That's all I want to prove. I don't care if you paid your kid's hairdresser out of the account. I don't care. I want to see the money going in. So those are that's the top line. That's how much you want to figure out. So you look at the market, what the market is. And then we got that from the rental meters from the apartments.com. Then you see what they actually collected. And now the difference between the two, assuming that we can account for other income sources, I'm just talking about rental income. The difference between those two numbers are things like concession. No, that's actually below the line. You're looking at loss to lease. You're looking at loss to lease. Oh my gosh, what else brings it down? Vacancies will bring that down, but that'll give you an idea. When you look at those two factors, the loss to lease and the vacancies, that'll give you an idea as to, can you do better? Can you manage this property better than this guy does? Can you get the occupancy up? Well, if the occupancy is 80%, you might think to yourself, yeah, I'll get the occupancy up to 90% or 95%. Wait, let's be smart about this. what is the market occupancy for that neighborhood? Maybe every property in that market is at 80%. What makes you think you're going to be different? Well, maybe he's at 60 and the market's at 80. Yes, you've got room. So ask those tough questions when you're starting to do that forensic accounting. The other question you want to ask is occupancy, but also loss to lease. Am I really that much off between the market and the other rents? How does my property compare to everyone else out there? Am I an all bills paid property, or am I a tenant paid property and the tenants have to pay the utilities? These are the things you've got to make sure you do this type of market survey to verify that your forensic accounting analysis is accurate. Loss to vacancy and credit loss are the main three. Yes, thanks, AJ. Credit loss. Yeah, I mean, it happens. Let me just talk for a moment about credit loss. Credit loss is just the nature of the business when you're dealing with a C-class property. The only property I've ever been able to recover bad debt is on my A-class property, because those people care about their credit rating and they don't want you to ding their credit report. So that's the only time. Class C properties, nature of the beast. These people get behind in the rents. They don't catch up. They get lost. Okay, so that brings us down to the top rental income, where that's coming in from. Then we're going to rebuild the financials for all the other incomes and any income reducers like concessions, employee units, those things that go towards reducing the amount of income that your property can actually earn. So we want to verify all that information, take into consideration any other income sources. We want to get verification of those. Let me give you a little tip. If you find out, if you buy a property that has a laundry contract, make sure you know when the laundry contract is up. They're typically 10 years long. They have to provide you this information because it's one of the things that we ask for in the letter of intent, service contracts. And those types of contracts come with big money when they're renewed. So I bought a property one time that was, it had gone by the wayside. The deal was done with the laundry contract. I realized that. I said, do not sign a new contract. You're not allowed to sign a new contract. I said, okay, no, I won't do it. After he signed it, after we bought the property, we signed a new 10-year contract, and we got a $25,000 check on day one to the property from the laundry company. That's what a laundry contract, that's how a laundry contract works. So make sure you check out those laundry contracts and realize that you don't want them to renew. Let me tell you a really bad story. This is one of the worst deals I ever did. It was, I got my butt kicked in this deal. And you learn many of my mistakes on this one. Deal fell out of contract. And we were fighting to get it back under contract. We finally renegotiated with the seller. We got the deal back under contract. But a little bit of a difference. During the time that we were renegotiating, he sold the mineral rights to an oil company for $70,000. We had to rewrite everything. We had to go back in there and it was no longer a fee simple absolute contract. We were no longer buying everything. We were buying the air, the land, and nothing else. Whereas before we were buying the air, the land, and the mineral rights. Gone. So those are the types of things. When that happens, folks, oh my, you're dealing with a shyster, absolute shyster. Let me see. Let's see. Rickson, what is a laundry contract? What is a laundry contract? Everybody wants to know a laundry contract. Okay, so what happens is you have third-party vendors. This is the way I want you to think about this. You go out and you buy a 200-unit property. Not only do you have 200 units that generate a little bit of money, you also have 200 customers that you can sell them other things. So as a owner and operator of a property, what else can we sell them? We can sell them laundry services. We can sell them cable contracts. We can sell them internet. We can sell them, carports, car spaces. You think about all the other ways that you can generate other income because you own the business. I mean, just think about it from a department store. When you go to a department store, the department store doesn't own the services that are there, the clothing. They're essentially working on consignment. They bring in the customers, and the customers buy other people's products, and you get a cut. The same is true as a multifamily owner. So the laundry contract is there are several companies out there that will buy your access to your investors, to your clients, your customers for their laundry services. And typically the way it works is you provide them a space on the property where they can set up their machines. You provide the water, you keep it clean, and they will write you a contract. It's a long-term contract, so it's going to be like a 10-year contract. As soon as you sign it, they go running down to the registry to record it and let the whole world know that they are on that property. And as soon as they do, they write you a big fat check. What do they call it? Like a design bill or a cleaning charge. They get, like, I made 25,000 on one property, 10,000 on another. And then they pay you 50% of the revenue that they generate off of those coin operated machines for on a quarterly basis. That was how my contracts have always worked. Nowadays you're getting it so much differently, where everything is electronic. These guys come in there and they swipe your cards. You sell the cards. It's really come a long way since when I first got started in this business. But that gives you an idea of the other sources of revenue that you need to verify because they're legit. I had one of them was vending machines, and I walked around with the property manager. She was a tough chick. And she went in and opened up the vending machine, reached in, grabbed a wad of money, and just stuck it in her bra. And I was like, okay, so much for the accounting on this property. When I look to see what they're saying I can make in vending machine money, I'm not counting it at all, because I don't trust that number. No, I'm not getting verification from a third party as to what we're making on that vending machine. Okay, boy, I'm going long on the financial. Same with expenses. You go through the expenses, you verify all 9 categories of expenses. You make sure they're legitimate, and then you've completed the financial due diligence. And now you want to verify. This is when you're working with your lender at the same time. You're letting them know what you're coming up with down there. So that's that. Once you complete that, legal, financial, as soon as that's done, you're good to go. Buy that airline ticket. If all lights are green, now is the time to go off and do the financial, the physical due diligence. And this time is when it gets kind of fun. You get out there, you meet the people, you meet the property management people. Sometimes you might meet the owner. Go out for dinner while you're there. Let me just check out some of these things. Rick Smith, I live in high density housing. We have communal washing machines that are under communal. Oh, okay, communal. Okay, AJ. I pictured something like you're on a commune and you're all sitting down there rubbing your wool pants like great grandma used to do, and sharing the water. I see what you mean by communal now. Okay, so in other words, you have a laundry room and not just a laundry within the unit. You don't want to be charged the maintenance of the laundry equipment. Rick, I'll tell you something. I've tried to go back, because I've owned properties, both types. I've owned properties with laundry rooms, and I've owned properties where the washer dryer is in each unit. And for the ones that are in each unit, I always thought to myself, is it better for me to buy the equipment and rent it to the tenant, or am I better off just telling the tenant, you bring in your own, and it's your responsibility? From a financial standpoint, when I looked at it many times, I think I was always better off letting the tenant bring in their own washer dryer, and I don't even deal with it. Other places though, they provide the washer dryer, and that's just part of the unit. Really, a lot of it has to do with what the market allows. Always keep that in mind. Yeah. Yeah, not like Sam Bankman-Fried. Thanks, AJ. Okay, so now we're going to the property. We're packed up. We're moving in there, going in there. Okay, I did a whole video in my library for my students. I did a whole video on what it's like when you get off the plane. No matter when you get off the plane, no matter when you are scheduled to go see that property, you get in your rental car and you drive right to the property. Do not pass go, do not collect rent. Go right to the property. Even if it's midnight, I don't care. You're there for one thing only. You're not there to go sit in a hotel room. Get out there and see that property. You want to see what it's like through all hours of the day on that property. What is a life cycle like on that property at all hours? Drive up at midnight. Are parties going on? Are people hanging around outside? I mean, is it dangerous? Is it safe? You want to get the flavor as soon as you go out there. And then you also want to make sure if there are any lights on the property, are they in working order? Because those things can get expensive. So always go around and say, that light's out, that light's out, that light's out. Those things all need to be replaced before I take over the property. Okay? And those things can get expensive. I had one down in Texas. Holy cow. Oh, that was one of the worst properties ever. Still talking about the same one. Go out and see the property. And the next day, go back, get a hotel, go have your little Manhattan, straight up, rye. Okay, so you're going to go there and you're going to drive to the place. Now, the beautiful thing about Waze or any other type of those apps, you can tell when you're 5 miles away, when you're 3 miles away, when you're 1 mile away. Now, it really makes a difference depending upon the class of the asset. I do not like Texas, Melanie. And you're finding out why with all these stories. A lot of these stories were in Texas. I like Michigan, Melanie. I like Michigan. So, and by the way, Melanie, we're having a mastermind. You are invited. I'll get you more information coming up. So, as you drive to the property, 5 miles out, 3 miles out, 1 mile out, it makes a difference that ring around the property based upon the quality of the asset. You see, because people who live in C-class properties, they don't venture far afield. Their life is within that 1 mile radius of that property. That's where they work. You look for bus lanes. Are you on a bus lane? So you really want to get a flavor of what goes on a C-class property. What's your competition within that 1 mile stretch? Look to see if you see a drive-by competition, you see big flags going up, leasing here, first month free, all that type of stuff. You want to understand what goes on in that tight market on a C-class property. A-class properties, those people all own their own cars. They'll go to the malls 5 miles away. You want to get a flavor of what's going on in that outside area. That'll really give you an understanding of what it's going to be like to own and operate in that area. As you drive onto the property, the first thing about, oh yeah, that was cool, Melanie. I saw that. I saw a message about that today. That was cool. As you drive onto the property, the first thing you have to understand, ask yourself the question, where does the water go? You may think that's the craziest question. Why would I care? Why is that important during the due diligence? Folks, when you own the property, it's very important. The number one killer of properties is water. So you want to understand what's the topography of that property. When things flow downhill, do I have a building down there? And the basement units, when I go in to do my inspection, I just smell the mold coming right up. You always want to understand how is the water being pulled away from the property. That's the key. So always, that's the first thing you do. Then the next thing you want to look at is driving up, look at the pavement. What condition is the pavement in? Doug and Debbie Benson, they're on this call right now. I love what they do when they take over a property. And one of the first things they always do is repave and restripe the parking lot. Nothing screams better curb appeal than a perfectly paved parking lot. Oh my gosh. And let me tell you something. I shouldn't have gone to law school. I should have become a paver because those guys make bank. I have no idea how these guys do it, but you need to get your property paved, call one guy, get his price. Call the other guy, get his price. Call the third guy. Like, what are you guys all hang out at breakfast together? They all charge the same amount. And it's ridiculous. It's unbelievable what these guys charge. But you know what? You have to do it. Yes, Alan, Bullet Rise, very good for Manhattan. Correct. But you have to do it. It's makes your property shine. All right. So keep that in mind when you drive onto the property. Then what you're going to do is drive around and you got to look for the cleanliness and the landscaping. Get a good feel. Look at those. The roofs. Obviously, we're going to look at the roofs. We're going to look at the gutters. Where the gutters are. Gutters are all set up. But here's something else I want you to look at. Look at the window shades, the blinds. You're responsible for those blinds. A rent-ready unit has perfectly new blinds that all work perfectly. If you drive around a property and you see broken and ripped blinds, that property is not being well maintained by the manager. That manager probably should be fired on day one. And here's why. When you go around a property, you see those blinds all ripped apart and torn to shreds. Oh, my cat gets in my stuff. Well, okay, guess what? That costs $120. We're going to add that to your rent next week, and we're going to come in and swap out, and you're responsible for that $120. You don't pay it, we're going to start eviction proceedings. That changes the mindset of your tenants. That lets them know that, oh, I'm responsible for that. I can get evicted for that. That makes people think about the quality of where they're living. And it makes your property look so much better when, as you drive around, every blind is perfect. This is the type of thing you think about when you own and operate properties. Make some change. The mastermind is not open to everybody. The mastermind is only open to existing clients, members of my program. Reach out to Deb. Deb and Molly are on this call. They can tell you how that can happen. But the 2 days for the mastermind are for my students. 2 days after the mastermind, open to everybody, and the hotel conference is open to everybody as well. Yeah, I want to buy in Texas, not anymore. Sorry, Gary. Gary. Don't listen. One of the things I didn't like about Texas was everyone talks about how great Texas is to business. Oh, it's so good for business. Yeah, until you've had employees in Texas. Man, every appliance that I owned in Texas had legs. And if you don't know what that means, let somebody on the line here explain it to you. Let me see. Can you repeat the blind policy? Oh, so the blinds. Rick, I don't mind Florida. Well, Florida's overpriced right now. Florida's been at such a high level. It's going to come smashing down. That's the time to be back in Florida. I haven't liked Florida for the last couple of years because the prices are stupid. Florida is going to start crashing, and that's when you want to be in Florida. The blind policy. So what happens is when the tenant gets a rent-ready unit, when they move in, all the blinds are perfect. That's your job as the owner. You keep a stock of your blinds in your maintenance shack, and every time anything's broken, you come and swap it out. And in your lease, it talks about any type of damage done to the unit is going to be the responsibility of the tenant. I mean, if it's the tenant's responsibility. If an inside blind breaks, that's the tenant's fault, and you can see it from the window. You go by and say, "Hey, I noticed you have broken blinds. We're going to charge you $120 or whatever price you come up with. $120. We're going to add it to your next month's bill. Maintenance will be in there to swap it out, so you'll have all new ones. You're responsible for the blinds, and if you don't pay that's grounds for eviction. We can start eviction proceedings against you. That's the policy. Okay. So yeah, like Rick. Rick is jumping on the bandwagon, scaring people away. Okay, so then what's going to happen is, what you try to do is you go on the property with a team, and there are really three parts to the team. The least important part is probably the third party that you will be hiring to go out and check the roofs, to check the foundation, to check the HVAC, and to check like the structure of the stairs and all those types of really the infrastructure of the property. That's their job because you're not qualified to do that. Typically, if you have a property management company, they have somebody on site, on staff, who can do that and is qualified to come up with a report to give an answer on it. If they don't, ask your property or whatever property management company you're thinking of using, ask them if they can provide somebody. Because you want to get a third-party report on that. Now, your bank is going to do all this stuff anyway during the financing period, and you're going to pay for it as well. But before you even write a check for that, you want to make sure that this property is good enough for you to do it. So that's the number one. That's one of the three people on the team. That's the least important one. The second one that is least important, I'm giving them a level of importance. The next one down the food chain are the people who are going to go through every single unit. I do that. I mean, that's that. You go in there, you can be in and out of a unit in 8 minutes. You're not going to bump maintenance, and obviously you give notification, 24-hour notice. Some states require 48. Make sure you know what the rule is in your state. 24-hour notice. You go out there, knock on the door, bump maintenance, and they key the door, maintenance, and you go in there, and you just go right around and you determine, what the deal is with the property, what the deal is with the unit. Now, here's the thing. You're not going to go and do a full deep dive because you don't have to. The first thing you want to do is get in the door and smell. Do you smell mold? If you smell mold, go find out where it is. The second thing you want to do is ask yourself the question, hey, if I were to buy this property and these people move out the next day, what's it going to cost me to get this place renovated? And you want to have an understanding. Is it going to be a full rehab? Is it going to be a light rehab? All those types of questions. So you have an understanding about where everybody is in the cycle of the property. The other thing you want to do is walk around with a rent roll. Hold on, I'm going to take a swig. Refrigerators have legs. Yes, Rocco. Yes, exactly. Rocco mustn't have known my property. You want to walk around with a rent roll. Why do you walk around with a rent roll? Because when you walk up to the unit, you want to see who is listed in that unit on the rent. Remember, everyone over 18 years of age has to be listed on the rent roll. They have to fill out the lease. You have to do a credit and a criminal background check on everyone over 18. The last thing you want to do is find out that some guy moved in with his new girlfriend and he's a sex offender and he got past your screening. No, everyone that moves in has to complete the lease over 18. All right. The other reason why you want to have the rent roll with you is to see how many people are living there. If it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, the code of the Board of Health requires that only a certain number of people can reside in that unit. If you walk around and there are mattresses littering the floor, and I've seen it before, mattresses littering the floor, and there are 20 construction boots lined up against the wall, oh, that's a problem. Well, you think, oh, they're just saving money. No, they're costing you money because those guys are all using water, and you're paying for the water. You're paying for the sewer. No, you got to walk around with the rent roll to make sure that everybody lines up. And also, the other thing is, smells like a cat. Smells like a dog. You don't have any pet deposit. You don't have any pet fee that you're paying. Why not? Oh, I'm just babysitting that cat. Yeah, how many times have I heard that line? Had a Section 8 tenant evicted because they refused to register their cat. Section 8, these people were paying $10 on one of my nicest units. $10. And they get evicted. And of course, when somebody gets evicted from Section 8, Section 8 asks, did they comply? No, these people failed to comply. They lose their voucher. All over a $35 cat fee. Stupid. Hello, Nikhazy. How are you? Southwestern Florida here, part-time. Can't wait for prices to decrease. Hey, Shannon, don't wait. Get looking now. Contact the local lenders. Credit unions are going to be in big trouble. Find out who owns multifamily loans for multifamily and start going after those right now, because it's going to start happening. A lot of cool stuff going on. There's finally those people that have been waiting and waiting and waiting, get to work. Get to work. There's great opportunity out there right now, because finally it's like, a logjam. I was going to use another expression, probably inappropriate, and Deb would be mad at me. But the logjam is just going to blow open, and everything is going to start over the next 5 years as properties come up for the terms on their loans come due. Great opportunity. Those sellers are going to be in trouble. So that's where you want to be. All right. That's the physical. That's the second type of physical inspection. And then the final, most important phase of the physical due diligence is that one person on your team that gets to sit in the air-conditioned management office all day and go through the lease files. That is what you're buying. The real estate is secondary. Nothing happens in this business until a valid customer, a qualified customer, signs their name on a lease contract. That's when money moves hands. So it's your job. The most important job is to go through those lease contracts and make sure they're all legitimate. And I don't mean just filling in an Excel file, check, yes, check. You want to go in there, make sure they're all clean, make sure they're orderly, figure out the whole entire process. These people signed a lease back in 2015. What has been their renewal increases since that time? Let me see the renewal contracts in there. Map that out. Look to see, what did this person come in paying? What are they paying now? What's the market? Do they pay their utilities, or do we pay their utilities? I've owned properties where you had to understand the code that the owner was using on the rent rolls to determine whether they were paying the utilities or whether we were paying the utilities. If the person's name was all in caps, then we pay the utilities. If the person's name was upper and lower case, then they pay the utilities. I'm not kidding you. That's a type of codes that some people use. So you have to understand all these types of things. Criminal background check. When the person comes back from looking at the units, you ask them, hey, what differences did you have in the rent roll between the names, between the number of tenants in there, all that type of information. And then you want to make sure that the leases are all signed properly. And let me tell you the worst story ever. Okay, and some of you have heard this story. I hate this story, but it's true. It's called phantom leases. Guy owned a bunch of properties in the area. My purchase and sale contract said I needed 95% occupancy. Any variation by more than 5%, problem. Guy sent over certified rent rolls every single month, 95% occupied. The took a long time to close. It was an assumption. It was a bear of a deal. We take over the property, and 30 days later, we're at 50% occupancy. It was never 95% occupied, but we went through all the leases. And then we realized that what they had done is he took leases off his other properties, whited out the name of the property, and hand wrote in my property name. There were phantom leases, all fraud. And it was bad. Lost that property, never came back. Biggest mistake. That is why the most important job on the physical due diligence is a person sitting in the management office going through every lease file. Questions? All right, let me see what I got. Gotten late. Thanks for the tips. Sure, Nanya. Let me see. Up here. There we go. I understand none of us can see the future, but when do you think this market is likely to drop? Okay, let me explain something to you, Steve. This is not going to be a crash. This is a turn. The market is turning. It started already. It's already started. Don't wait and say, oh, I missed the last time. No, it's turning now. Interest rates are going up. Inflation is on the rise. The rental increases and the cap rate compression that we've had over the last 5 years is coming to an end. Now is the time to get moving, and you've got to get moving in the first places that they're going to be felt, and that's with the lenders. And the lenders, there are two different types of lenders. You got the credit unions, you got well, actually three. You got the credit unions, you got the state chartered banks, and you've got the GSEs, the government sponsored entities. State chartered banks have to answer to the bank examiners. If the market is changing in a particular marketplace and you're starting to see the rents come down and the occupancy is starting to go down, and you're starting to see the cap rates increase, this is your job. You're the investors in those markets, and you start to see the cap rates going up. That means that the banks are sitting back watching that guy's loan and afraid for when the bank examiner walks through the door. Because when the bank examiner walks through the door, he's going to walk up and say, hey, that property, you got it marked down for $1 million worth of collateral. According to my calculations, that thing's only worth $750 right now. You have to go out to that seller and ask for $250,000 more collateral. Oh, he's tapped. He doesn't have any cash. You got to take the property back, or you guys are going to fail as a bank. That's how it works with those local lenders. Get on the horn. All of my students on the customer relationship management tool that is our custom developed one that I've created. We have a spot for banks and credit unions and also delinquent loans. So you can go on there and find the banks in your marketplace and start building up a relationship with those people. I've got them all tabbed for you. And right now, Deb is checking out whether we're going to add a tab for property management companies. And you can start calling property management companies right from our CRM, or you have our VA who works for you make those calls for you. So that is what you need to do, Steve. Don't wait. No more excuses. No, I can do it. No, now's the time to do it. All right. Do you think the correction will be like, no, not at all. It's going to be like 2008 in certain marketplaces. So it's going to be a turn and not a crash. In 2008, it was a crash. It was overnight. I remember I had a deal under contract. We had approval from the lender. It was a $6 million loan, Key Bank. I get a phone call from my, wow, we're going long. I can talk a lot. It's good thing I limit my Monday night calls to 1 hour because I could go on and on. And I hope I'm not, I got 15 minutes, maybe more. Local lender, hold on, where was I? Key Bank notifies my mortgage broker. We're pulling our approval on that loan. And I said, what are you talking about? You already spent $15,000 in third-party reports. How can you do that? Oh, we're getting out of the business. It's not just you. We're getting out of the business entirely. And that's what happened. Overnight, that's what happened. That's not going to happen now. Now, the underwriting guidelines that have been created as a result of that crash are resulting in more sound underwriting. But all this COVID money has created such a blur, and now it's all dried up, and you just cannot continue to buy and sell property and keep asking your tenants to pay the 8% or 9% preferred return to the next syndication group, and then to the next syndication group. Sooner or later, your tenants just don't have any more money. And those markets that skyrocketed are the ones that will crash. But you look at those markets that did not skyrocket, that have been slow and steady, and they'll have a correction. They'll slow down, but they never went up really high in the first place. That's why, as my buddy Paul Moore always says, investors don't care what the market's doing. They know how to unlock value in a property. Interest rates go up, all right, it won't make as much money as we thought. But if I'm able to walk into a property and that's paying $600 a month in rent, and within 1 to 2 years turn that to $850 to $900 in rent because the previous owner, let me give you an example, previous owner could not manage the property correctly, then that's how I make my money. So that's what we do as investors. It's your job to get out there and do it. And I'm telling you right now, I'm sorry, I keep hitting my table that holds up my camera. The people that are feeling it right now, or the ones that are best type of people you should be going after, are the 20 to 50 unit mom and pop shops. Those people have been believing everything that's been being sold to them over the last 3 years in the marketplace regarding COVID. And they're afraid to go up on the rents for their people because they didn't want to lose them. And so they've kept their rates stagnant. And now their rents stagnant. And now they're looking to get out. They're tired. That's where you're going to find the opportunities. You want to get in there and bring those types of properties up to market rents. That's where you're going to find the real killer deals in what's going on right now. I really think that size property is really where the winners are. Okay, let's see what Rick says. What's the legal ramifications for what, Steve? For what? Rick, what's the legal ramifications for? Oh, help me out here. Finish your sentence. I don't like pronouns. Did that seller with ghost leases have a robust legal? Oh, okay, AJ. Do I know the truth? His robust legal strategy was to sell to a buyer group that didn't have a whole lot of cash to hire a legal team to go after him. It would have been so hard to prove fraud. We were just better off buckling up and doing the best we could. And that's what we did, and we failed. So, AJ, that's a very good question. Very good question. Would a management company or attorney have a way to catch those ghost leads to prevent that fraud? Yeah, and they did. But we didn't find out about it until after we bought the property. So here's another lesson learned on that. And that is, listen to this, folks. My purchase and sale contract for all of my students, you use my contract. In it, it says that you're able to perform an inspection on the property at any time you're under agreement. Understand what I didn't say. I didn't say that you can get your earnest money back after 30 days. No, that's not what I said. I said that any time that the property is under contract, you can go put a notice on everyone's door within 24 hours. We're going to go back and we're going to knock on every door. And that's what I recommend you do. Here's why. Because during that time, when a property gets put under contract, let's talk turkey here. That seller can't wait to get out of that property. He can smell the money at the closing table. He can't wait until it closes. And he doesn't work that hard. Somebody gave their notice, don't worry about it. Just keep paying. I'm 60 days away from closing. Don't worry about it. 2 days before you go into closing, you go back and you walk all of those units. You walk all of those units and you find out. You can tell when you walk into a unit when somebody is skipped. You can tell when no one lives there anymore. And you start going around like, wait a minute. Nobody lives here. When was the last time they paid their rent? Oh, geez, they must have just moved last night. Well, they were here a little while ago. Baloney. I want to see their receipts. I want to see where they paid. And the other thing in my contract is that you get to do this, and all units that have moved out more than 48 hours before closing have to be rent ready, or you're paying me money per unit. So that's another thing I learned from that phantom lease. And the other thing too is it says in there, I put in my thing, is if the occupancy changes more than I think 5 or 10%, whatever it is. If the occupancy changes more than 5 or 10% during the course of this contract, even 2 days before the close, you get your money back and you can walk. Listen, my contract's a buyer's contract. It ain't no seller's contract. And my students are now selling their properties, and they, Charlie, can you take a look at these contracts so I don't get screwed? I'm like, I'm a pro at it. Sure, let me do that for you. That's what I do for a living. Okay, so Rick just came back with ghost lease. What's the legal ramifications? Well, actually, Rick, so the legal ramifications for it is fraud. Fraud in the contract, fraud in the inducement, fraud in the factum. It would really depend upon the facts that we could prove. We would have to prove, and it would be a long drawn out case. We weighed the cost, and we said, we can either spend the little money that we have on legal fees, or we can spend the little money that we have going after the property and turning it around. And it was a losing proposition either way. And now that was one of the properties that I wish I had never done. I talk about you want to buy properties that you forget you even own. I love those. And you don't want to buy property. You don't want to be involved in properties that you forget that you wish you had never seen before. And that was a property I wish I had never seen. But I'm telling you right now, I learned my lesson, and I'm sharing it all with you now. So, boy, wow, 513. I thought I was going to go getting super excited about the Ingo. Don't know what an Ingo is. Info. Okay. Thank you. Good. Excellent. Yeah, I should probably do one of these calls on the market and what's going on in different places. Okay, great. Thanks. Make some change. Cool. Rick, how about reps and warranties surviving 6 to 12 months after closing? Great question. Okay, so what happens is in a purchase and sale contract, there are promises. There are, what Rick is referring to here is, what about the representations and the warranties that existed in the purchase and sale contract for that seller, between the seller and me, that survived closing? Okay. Now, Rick, it was so long ago, I can't remember what the time frame was, whether we negotiated it shorter. But what happens with this is when you're doing the purchase and sale negotiations, the seller wants the reps and warranties to be a shorter period of time. You want them to be as long as possible. 12 months, you shoot for that, maybe 2 years. They try to get it to 3 months. That's because they want to be done with this property, and you want them to have a tail that you can grab a hold of and pull them back in the event that something that they represented or that they warranted gets breached, and you can pull them back in. And that's essentially what the provision would have been that we would have sued under in a contract action against the seller, would have been the reps and warranties provision. But we never even got that far. Good question. Let's see. Sounds good. Okay, good. All right, guys. Awesome. Anybody else? Listen, you know how to get a hold of me. Are you doing any masterminds in Florida soon? Yes, Steve. That's where the mastermind's going to be. It's going to be in Miami. We are this close to signing on the dotted line with either the Biltmore in Miami or the W in Fort Lauderdale. Those are two good locations for us. We haven't quite figured out. So the mastermind will be at that facility, and that's the first 2 days. And the second 2 days will be the open session. That'll be the third and fourth day. And just so you understand, one of the things that the way I teach, great, thanks, Gary. One of the things that I teach is the Multifamily OS is teaching you how to build a business of owning and operating multifamily. It's not just teaching you how to acquire property. It's teaching you how to get to 1,000 apartment units in 5 years. Wait a minute. Didn't somebody write a book about that? Right there. How to own 1,000 apartments in 5 years. You don't do it on one transaction. You do it by building a successful business. And so that's going to be what we're going to be teaching the mastermind. I'm actually going to have my business coach, who's one of the best in the country. The guy has just turned my business. It's been fantastic. And he's going to be teaching a workshop to my students on how to build a successful business. And then, we will be dealing in multifamily things as well, but that's going to be the primary focus. I want people to think about multifamily as a business, because that's what it is. It's not real estate, it's a business. And the way that the Multifamily OS program works is it is the equivalent of you're buying a franchise, where we've created so many systems already for you that when you come on board, we just plug them into your company, get you up and running, and get you started, so that you right away on day one, you're already reaching out to owners, finding out your markets, becoming an expert, building up your investor database, everything it takes to be a successful business owner. So, okay, everybody, good. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. Fort Lauderdale, please. Why? Miami is so congested. No kidding. But let me tell you something. Fort Lauderdale ain't that much better. But yeah, I agree. But the thing is that the Biltmore is so close to the airport, and that for people flying in, it's a great little, and it's so beautiful. And if we get the big banquet room, oh my God, it's like something right out of The Shining. You expect to see Jack Nicholson be your bartender. Okay, everybody. Hey, great to see you all. I hope you enjoyed it. Boy, we should have cut this one into 2 segments, but probably we have a list of topics. Molly's got a list of topics, and we can figure it out as we go through it. Let me see hold on. Beware families, lest you get fleeced. Hey, very clever, Ellen. Are you Master of Finance, Florida? Thanks, Mr. Dobbins. Good. Okay, I got everybody. All right, good. I think what we might be doing is really start talking about some of the sources that you should be using as the markets turn and finding deals. We'll work on something like that. All right, everybody. Great to see you all, and let's chat later. Talk to you.